Let's go. Brou, are you ready to give the Patriots a grade?
I am ready to give them a grade. It may not be as high as you're expecting, judging from your enthusiasm in that opening.
Okay.
But I'm going to keep it real. All right? Look, and this is the entire offseason as far as I'm concerned. So they get points. They get extra points on my checklist because of Mike Vrabel.
Oh, you're including
I'm including
higher?
I'm including now,
okay,
because that brings it up a little, so you'll see what I think of some of the signings. Now, look, Milton Williams, that might be the best one. He was great in the Super Bowl, 2 sacks against the Chiefs.
God knows those guys that flash in Super Bowls and then get huge deals. That never turns out bad for teams. Guys whose names we weren't that familiar with and have huge Super Bowls, those guys always turn into just perennial Super
No,
stars.
that's my point. He's essentially kind of a part-time player.
Yeah.
Right? And now it might pan out, right? Nobody expected Zach Bond to, do what he did in Philly, but it might not. All right? I mean, because he has never played 50% of the snaps in his career in a season. So it's a risk. Maybe it'll be a good one, but that just goes into my psyche. Like, not sure about that. The other ones are Spillane, David, good players. And Mac Hollins, his biggest claim to fame is he doesn't wear shoes.
Correct. What's the grade, Brou?
And to me, and here's what really took it down.
I know we have 5 of these, though.
But this is what really took it down. An embarrassing situation at the wide receiver position.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin turned down $20 million to be the number one, to go from being a number 2 to a number 1 with a young hotshot quarterback. I got to give it a C+. A C+.
So
yes, a C+ because
plus isn't even real.
You didn't get Godwin. you didn't get DK Metcalf. You obviously can't get T. Higgins. You settled for a guy that doesn't wear shoes.
I had C-, but I wasn't including Vrabel.
Okay.
So here's why. So I think what they spent. They had to pay like 130 cents on the dollar for what I consider mid-tier players, except for Milton Williams. Milton Williams, I think, could be really good. I know Eagles people were talking about him before the Super Bowl, to their credit, like, hey, he could have a huge impact, and he did.
They made him the 4th highest paid D tackle.
No, right, so that's why I'm saying 130 cents on the dollar. But they still have – they only addressed defense.
Yeah.
You say but I don't. All year, Wilds, you told me how horrible this offensive line was. They signed Morgan Moses, who's, okay, buddy, you can't all of a sudden think Morgan Moses is good when he was a year ago the Jets' right tackle, and you were talking about their
scheme.
Okay, but he's 35-year-old, $8 million a year tackle. And they still don't have a single draftable player for fantasy football. And the reason I say that is they don't have a single impact skill position guy. And you can't rebuild an offensive line, receiving core, and running back room in one draft. So I just think the offense, you have all these high hopes for Drake May. They had a defensive new head coach that built up his defense, and the offense still just sitting there.
I like it, Greg.
I like it too, Wilds. I gave him a B+. Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to come in and establish the identity of which you're going to play with. And this is what it was in Tennessee. They were stout up front. You couldn't run on their teams. Defensively, they were physical. We always thought of those teams as lunch pail. We're talking about the New England Patriots. The last time we saw them have tremendous success, obviously Tom Brady was under center on the offense side of the ball, but defensively they were rock solid.
But they also had 2 superstars on offense.
I understand that, but you can start to address. You can't address everything right now. You have
baby steps. I get baby steps, baby steps is a B+.
You got Carlton Davis alongside of Gonzalez. Great, excellent. You bolster up your interior defensive line. Great, excellent. You lost Godshaw to the Saints. You filled voids that were necessities. And he's a defensive-minded coach. This team is going to cause problems in that division.
Every other team that has a star young quarterback or a hopeful star young quarterback is trying to build around that guy.
And I get it. It's so much wild.
Now they tried.
So much
embarrassing.
We all know this. There's so many more opportunities to get a receiver versus all these other positions.
Nobody wants to go there.
I'm saying even in the draft, you can find one.
I love that. Lunch pail.
This one will be easy.
Coming up, it looks much better, Brou. Grade the Bears.
This one's simple. The great offseason, obviously, they start with Ben Johnson, a great head coach, or, we think is a great hire. And the offensive line, it's on your boy, Nick. Like, there's no excuse for Caleb not to roll this year. And I think he showed enough flashes, more than flash. He had some good games, some big numbers here and there, that I would expect him to shine and them to be really strong next year.
So I gave this, I was not including the Ben Johnson thing. So if I were, I would have given this a B. Because I do think they improved, but they improved in the most expensive manner possible. And they have traded away now so many draft picks in order, to get expensive veteran players.
Now, you know that.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think you've got to kind of try to thread the needle of trying to maximize the rookie contract window while also getting young, talented players around your young, talented quarterback. And so, it was surprising to me how much of this upcoming draft they traded away. I do like the Tooney deal, or the Tooney trade. I understand it. I think getting a good center is good. But, man, Ryan Poles has been a little willy-nilly with trading away draft picks, and that makes me a little anxious.
Well, I think he went for the sure thing. And so for me, I gave them an A- because they addressed exactly what their needs were. You needed to protect Caleb Williams. He's your future moving forward. You got him a center, someone that can assist him with play calls. You got him 2 guards. That interior pressure, he won't have that. That's something that they struggled with last year. And then defensively, you address some areas as well. So, I like the direction that – and if you're Ben Johnson – you can't call the plays if you can't protect.
Right.
And so you have to spend this money, and I think it's not sexy because we're not seeing the skill position guys get all the attention. But right now, what the Bears needed, they addressed.
Can I throw one thing out there? Because I think most people now, they've spent all this on the offensive line, and they've gone offense in the first round with Rome and with Caleb and Darnell Wright. I think most people are expecting them to take a pass rusher with their first-round pick. I wonder if this could be where Ashton Genty goes.
Really?
Yeah. I think that with what they've built on the offensive line, and that with Swift being underwhelming last year, I think is fair to say. Again, I was only the world's 18th best mock drafter last year, so I don't know what the 17 guys ahead of me have. I don't see many people mocking Ashton there, and maybe it doesn't make sense, but that would be pretty win-now-ish to what this offseason has been.
They're clearly in win-now mode, I'd say. All right.
They took a little bit of a step back, 9 total touchdowns the last 2 years. Brou, this is a classic.
A few years ago, I was a big Javonte Williams fan.
You were?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, privately.
Okay.
Inside. I liked it.
We didn't really talk about it.
We didn't talk much the Broncos on this show. We talked Russ. We ripped you ripped Russ, but I was thinking inside.
Javonte.
No, and
around the dinner table.
I think though when Russ went, I was like, they got Javonte Williams. I liked what I saw. But the prop, that was a few years ago. And what he do? He had the knee injury, right? And he hasn't been the same since. He hasn't averaged 4 yards a carry. He's been like 3.7 in the last 2 seasons. So this is your big, signing. I don't know if he still has it to the level that he did. And then I'm going to throw in the fact that you still have not paid Micah Parsons.
Oh.
And all that means is when you could have got him for $35 million, $36 million, heck. I don't want to say it's going to be closer to $45 million.
Well worn.
But I'm just saying, look, I'm sorry. And you're watching Washington. We know what Philly is. You're watching Washington improve. Had a great year last year, the Commanders. And then this offseason, they are going for it. And you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs.
They also got a new coach. Usually give a new coach.
Yeah, and that's another thing. You didn't even look at Bill Belichick. You didn't even look at Deion Sanders. Hey, you didn't even look at Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson. You just promoted a guy. And look, maybe Brian Schottenheimer will be great. But from my vantage point, this offseason has been what it usually is for the Cowboys, an F.
Well, I'm not going to give them an F, but I am going to give them the big D. I mean, it's only fitting. Like, they didn't do a tremendous amount. They did re-sign Osa
Odigizua.
There we go.
Was great. I mean, they paid a lot of money.
They
for
did
him.
pay a lot of money for him, but they did. And then Kevontae Turpin, they signed him. Like, I mean, they actually did get the running back that we thought that they should have gone out and gotten last year. They spent the money on the running back.
Javonte. We have all these calls that Javonte Williams fans.
He's not what he used to be, I don't think.
No.
Every day, I haven't heard Javonte Williams
I'm not at all saying. I'm just saying, last year, we were waiting for them to sign a running back, and they waited this year, and they got their running back. So, I mean, maybe it works out.
Could have had Derrick Henry.
I would have given them an N/A, not applicable. Because they, once again, are not participating in the offseason.
But that should be enough.
No, I agreed. I was being, I guess, a little pedantic there. I don't understand. Wilds and I have very different opinions on or interest levels in teams signing back their own players.
I like that. I'm Mr. Continuity.
No. Of us discussing it.
Oh.
And so I find the fact that every day that Micah Parsons is unsigned, I think I think it's like the fourth biggest NFL story. Because it might not be interesting to talk about like that, but it is so obvious that you must either re-sign this player as soon as possible or just be like, screw it, we're trading him. Yeah. Before the draft. Like, it just doesn't. And so every day they don't do it, I think the grade goes lower. Right. And I think it's a mistake.
Is it costing them maybe $750,000 a day?
Oh, that's probably high. But it is. But every time, I mean, the last week it has, Brou, because a week ago it was 35. Then Crosby got 35 and a half. Then Myles Garrett, with his newfound love for Brew's hometown, Cleveland, and now it's 40. So we have tried, I think, on this show for two reasons. One is because we try to genuinely be fair and kind to people, and the other is also because Coach Mangini, our partner, has a real relationship with Brian Schottenheimer. Not to write that guy off, and it's unfair, but it is also honest to be like, that was as underwhelming, doesn't mean it won't work, but as underwhelming of a coaching search and hire as one could make. And so all of that goes into a bad offseason.
I think I was leaning toward thinking he'd retire, but, he's back, and that's great. Nick, I like getting Hollywood Brown, back.
At a good deal.
Right? Yeah, and you're going to presumably Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, all these guys. I think that bolsters the core. I like getting Nick Bolton back, too. Yeah, I thought that was a really big hire. And I know you love Jalen Moore, and he might be it's similar to the Milton Williams. Like, he's another guy, career backup, has played well when he replaced Trent Williams, but he started 12 games in 4 years. So I just don't know. And I feel like, Nick, it's kind of a this is a huge problem for the Chiefs.
What if you
and it's kind of it might be putting a Band-Aid. Maybe he is great. But we just haven't seen it, and he hasn't been a starter. So you know what I'm saying? I think it's another Band-Aid on that left tackle position.
It might be. And listen, as a guy who once was the only thing people knew me as is the guy who backed up the greatest ever, maybe I have a soft spot for a guy who was backing up the greatest ever. Like, hey, that guy could really be something. He's been blocked by a goat. And so I'm not going to act like, that I was watching Jalen Moore when he was filling in for Trent Williams. Like, man, this guy's going to be a star. What I am going to say is, of all the guys who you could not beat out for a starting job in the league, you can't hold that against him. And the smart folks at PFF say when he's played, he has played well. And it is inexpensive enough that if they're wrong, it doesn't cripple them moving forward at that spot. So I think that's valuable. I also think keeping Trey Smith was super important. Right. Now, they lost Tooney, but they weren't ever going to be able to keep both of them. I thought today adding Christian Fulton, which will allow Trent McDuffie to play more on the inside where he's at his best. Jalen Watson, that's helpful. And I'm going to add one other thing that this could change. 2 key defensive starters who are free agents have not been signed yet by other teams, Justin Reed and Charles Omenihu. I would think one of them might be able to come, like it was like, hey, go see. We can't pay you what you think the market's going to be. The fact that neither one of those guys have gotten a deal makes me think maybe that one of those guys could come back. And I thought Bolton was gone. Getting Nick Bolton back is good. So I had them with a B. So, but maybe
I would just say only thing on Moore too. They outside of Trent Williams, their offensive line wasn't overwhelmingly good. So you could have put Moore maybe at another position.
He's a pure true left tackle.
Yeah, I gave him a B-. I think the Moore acquiring Jalen Moore, I think it's huge simply because you got a guy who, in my opinion, #1 Western Michigan University grad. Exactly. Just know that. But he's sitting behind arguably one of the best left tackles to ever do it. And if you can't learn something in that offensive scheme behind that particular player and then now be brought in to protect Patrick Mahomes, then something's wrong. But I think he's going to be just fine. But I thought Hollywood Brown, getting him back, crucial. We saw the jump that they made offensively with just him. And even who they get at running back?
Elijah Mitchell.
Elijah Mitchell, just him. I know he missed,
you
missed last year, but
Ryan.
you get another running back there. Bolton was huge.
I just also think that by signing Fulton, by bringing in Hollywood, and by retaining the guys they did, and signing Jalen Moore, they are whenever they come for pick 31, they're not going to be in that spot. Be like, man.
Exactly.
We have this tackle rated as the 68th best player in the draft, but we have to take him. You know what I mean? They don't, to me, have one just glaring, oh my God, hole going into the draft now, so they can be flexible enough to just take, if they think a really good player slides, to take him.
It's similar to Dallas in that it's about philosophy. I don't like their outlook and their approach to this offseason. Like, they are just building up the offense. They give Gesicki a really nice deal. Yeah. I think last year he made under $3 million. Now they're just paying him about $8 million a year. Like, he's a good player, but I think they overpaid him. And I just think prioritizing T. Higgins, as good as he is, over Trey Hendrickson is wrong. They've signed some of their defensive players from last year's horrible defense, but they want to let Trey Hendrickson go shopping. So I got to give him a D. I mean, it's just the approach I don't agree with.
Yeah, this is honestly an F.
And Jamar, I didn't even mention. Yeah. This is similar to Micah.
Yeah, this is
it just keeps going up the price.
To have the leading pass rusher and pass sacker and Trey Hendrickson out there, just go seek a trade.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's looking like he's going to be the one that they choose to not even pay and let him play his deal out and see what he does this upcoming year. But you tag T. I totally get that because you want to keep some continuity. You're going to probably sign Jamar Chase, but
I don't know, man.
That number,
and it's going to be a huge
number. With you publicly going out and saying, you know what, he's going to be the highest paid non-quarterback. Well, now,
right.
Now his team, and he's going to try to hold you to that. That number has gone up tremendously. They just have mishandled this from last year with T, all the things. I know you think that they should.
I don't think they. I'm not saying they should trade him. What I'm saying is, I do. At some point, these things haven't gotten done because they're not getting done, and like Wilds is understandably kind of over the Jamar Chase story because it feels like we've been talking about it for almost a year. Because we have.
We have.
Because it was last August that the coach went to the podium confidently and was like, yeah, I'm pretty confident we're, in short order going to get something done with Jamar. And then the owner was like, oh, I don't think so. And it's still the same owner. Also, if we're incorporating into these grades, Brou, coaching hires we like, I would ding him for firing Lou Anarumo. I think he's a good defensive coordinator, and I think that he was not their problem last year. I think it was more personnel than scheme, and so I think this has been a really tough offseason for him. And until they get Jamar Chase signed, it's going to be a dark cloud looming. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.